Look, I didn't want to be a Percy Jackson content creator. Being one is kind of annoying, mainly. It gets you yelled at by teenagers online when you don't ship their weird crack ship or support being mean to the cast and crew. But I am one, because 20 years ago today, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the Lightning Thief, came out to the public and changed the world. This is more than just a recap. This is a quest into understanding why after all this time, Percy Jackson has managed to stick around. There once was a boy named Haley Riordan. Don't worry, he's still alive, this isn't one of those kinds of videos. Haley had trouble with his schoolwork. He found it difficult to read and write, and if he had to choose between paying attention to his lessons or looking at the birds out the window, he would choose the latter. Haley had borderline dyslexia, as well as ADHD, which isn't far from the norm. According to the CDC, in 2022, there were an estimated 7.1 million children, ranging from the ages of 3 to 17, who live with ADHD in the US. There was one area in which Haley didn't struggle with, however, and that was when it came to consuming Greek mythology. It was something he even willingly read in class. His father, Rick Riordan, had taught Greek myths for years as a middle school teacher, so he had asked his father to read them to him. And read they did, covering the gods, the monsters, and the heroes, until one day, they had gone through them all. Haley, in a moment that would shape history, requested that his dad would make up a new myth about a new hero. Rick thought about his son's struggles with ADHD and dyslexia, as well as his students he had taught with the same conditions. He felt the need to honor them, to let them know that being different wasn't bad, and that intelligence wasn't something you can measure with a piece of paper and a number 2 pencil. Off the top of his head, he came up with a story about a kid named Percy Jackson, a modern-day 12-year-old son of Poseidon. Percy struggles in school with ADHD and dyslexia, and is labeled constantly as being a lazy troublemaker. And yet, Percy finds that his learning disability are indicators that he has Olympian blood. Percy Jackson is not just a child of the gods, he's also a hero.
We were geeking out on ancient Greek at the New York Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Our stories begin, as all good stories do, at the beginning. Percy Jackson, age 12, is on a school field trip to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Out of all of his field trips, he hopes this is the one where he doesn't get in any trouble. He accidentally set off a Revolutionary War cannon back in 5th grade, and in 4th grade he accidentally flipped a lever that sent his class on an unexpected swim at the aquarium. This time, Shirley will be the one that goes well. On the way to the museum, star Nepo baby Nancy Bobafett is throwing chunks of her peanut butter and ketchup sandwich, what the f***, at Percy's best friend Grover. Because of his scrawny demeanor, the fact that he cried a bunch, and having a physical disability that required the use of crutches, Grover was easy pickings for the bully population of Yancey Academy. There are 2 teachers on this field trip, Mr. Brunner and Mrs. Dodds. Mr. Brunner is a chill dude in a wheelchair who thinks Percy's a good kid, and Mrs. Dodds would be the first in line if killing students became legal, especially if that student's name is Percy Jackson. Percy is called on and asked to recount the story of how Kronos, king of the Titans, ate his children until his wife hid their son Zeus from him. Zeus would later make his father throw up his fully formed kids, and they'd wage war, ultimately winning and becoming the rulers of the world. Outside, Percy notices some very dark storm clouds, noting that New York State had been having some snowstorms, flooding, and wildfires since last Christmas. None of the other students seem to realize, more interested in their lunch. Percy sits down and thinks about how close his mom's apartment is. He would love nothing more than to hop into a cab and give her a big hug, but he knows that while she'd reciprocate the hug, she would be disappointed. Percy can't get kicked out of Yancey. It would be his 6th school in 6 years. Out of love and respect for his mom, he needs to tough it out. Nancy comes out of nowhere to stop this lovely daydream and starts antagonizing Grover and Percy. And from one second to the next, she ends up in a fountain, screaming that Percy had pushed her. Mrs. Dodds sees this and takes Percy to the empty Greek and Roman section in the museum, and to Percy's horror, turns into a grand winged creature. She asks him where it is, and because he doesn't know what it is, he has no answer for her. Mr. Brunner bursts in and throws Percy a pen, as Percy dodges Mrs. Dodds' fury. Except it's not a pen, it's a sword, which is perfect when your pre-algebra teacher needs to be vaporized. But then Mr. Brunner isn't there, and the sword is not a sword, it's a pen! Percy, confused, walks back outside to talk to Mr. Brunner about what happened. Mr. Brunner thanks him for returning his pen, and to Percy's shock, has no idea who Mrs. Dodds is. In fact, according to Mr. Brunner, Grover, and all the other students, Yancey Academy never had a teacher named Mrs. Dodds. They almost convinced Percy that he imagined the whole thing. He's constantly trying to find someone who breaks the big joke and reveals that Mrs. Dodds was real, but no one breaks, except for Percy, who gets more irritable and cranky as he suffers from nightmares about that day in the Met. His grades are slipping and his interactions with others are negative, leading to the headmaster sending home a note to his mom. Percy would not be attending Yancey Academy next year. Fine by him, he didn't care about anything having to do with the school anymore. except for Mr. Brunner's final exam. Frustrated because he can't remember the difference between Chiron and Charon, Percy decides the best thing to do is cool down and ask his teacher for help. However, when outside Mr. Brunner's door, he overhears a conversation between him and Grover? The conversation between Grover and Mr. Brunner confirms his worst fears. They're talking about him. He hears his name, and though most of the conversation is muffled, he catches the words "kindly one" and "he must be warned." The tone of their voices is serious, even fearful. This revelation shocks Percy. He realizes that not only is he not imagining things, but also that the adults around him are gaslighting him into believing what happened at the Met was just his imagination. Rather than easing his mind, this conversation only deepens Percy's sense of alienation and dread. The school year ends and Percy and Mr. Brunner have one last conversation before he heads back to Manhattan. Brunner tells Percy not to feel discouraged about leaving Yancey. It is for the best after all. This isn't the right place for Percy. It was only a matter of time. How the hell Mr. Brunner came to be a teacher, I have no idea. I thought teachers were supposed to have basic compassion. Percy and Grover head back to Manhattan on a bus. Grover the whole way glancing nervously at the other passengers, to which Percy snidely asks if he is looking for kindly ones. Grover is stunned and Percy reveals that he overheard his and Mr. Brunner's conversation, but didn't fully understand what the summer solstice deadline was about. Grover tries to lie his way through before giving up and handing Percy a business card. He says to call the number on the card if he ever needs protection, which surprised Percy because he's been protecting Grover all year. Percy asks Grover what would he need protection from, and just before Grover can say anything, the bus they're on breaks down. Everyone gets off while the bus driver does his best to fix it, and across the road sit three really old ladies, knitting what must be a pair of socks for a giant. Grover notices them, and in a panic makes Percy get back on the bus. Percy observes the old ladies, and across the busy road with traffic and noise, he swears he hears the snip of scissors cutting through a thread. This freaks Grover out more, as he's gibbering on about how they never make it past 6th grade, which understandably isn't sitting right with Percy. Grover makes Percy promise that they'll walk home from the bus stop together, and in order to get him to stop freaking out, Percy agrees. Percy ditches Grover the second he goes to the bathroom. Sorry man, the vibes were super f***ing off. He hops in a taxi and heads to East 104th and 1st, which is not at all how a New Yorker would say it, but I'll let it pass. Upon arriving home, his lovely stepfather, Gabe Ugliano, gives Percy the love and attention any growing 12-year-old needs by demanding his remaining cash so he can lose it at poker. In case you can't tell, Gabe Ugliano is a bad person and stepfather. Percy pays up and goes to his room, or as it's known during the months he's at school, Gabe's study. Contemplating the year he's had and the shame he feels for failing out of his 6th school in 6 years, his thoughts are interrupted by his mom, Sally Jackson, coming home. Sally's actually a loving and caring parent, and she even brings him some candy from her job at Grand Central. They sit on Percy's bed as he tells her everything that he didn't mention in his letters, but when it came time to talk about his trip to the Met, he just couldn't. Sally surprises him with the news that they're going to spend 3 nights at the cabin in Montauk. After making her famous 7-layer dip and promising Gabe that his beloved Camaro will only be driven to Montauk and back, Percy and Sally head to Montauk.
Percy and Sally head out to their cabin, a little pastel box with faded curtains as Percy describes it. Arriving here takes years off of Sally's appearance. Despite never telling him, Percy knows this is where she met his dad. Gabe once told Sally that there's no such thing as blue foods. Sally took that as a personal challenge. Blue birthday cake, blueberry smoothies, blue candy from her job. Along with keeping her maiden name of Jackson, this was proof enough to Percy that when it came to Gabe, Sally was not entirely bewitched. That night, they roast marshmallows and hot dogs. Sally reminisces of a time before her parents' death and confides in Percy about her ambitions of being a writer once she saves up enough money from the candy shop. Percy is always, when he comes to Montauk, can think of one thing: his father. Sally remembers this time fondly, recounting that Percy's father shares his eyes and his hair. She wishes that he would be here so he could be proud of him. Percy, however, doesn't feel like there's a lot to be proud of. He's a D+ student, dyslexic and hyperactive, kicked out of his 6th school in 6 years. What could there possibly be to be proud of? Percy receives confirmation that they indeed only spent one summer together, and that he left before Percy was born. However, Percy has this faintest memory of a warm smile, maybe perhaps even his father's touch. Unfortunately, these amazing memories have to be brought crashing down as Sally and Percy now need to have a difficult discussion. What is to happen to him when fall comes? Sally has to send Percy away, not because she wants to, but because she needs to. Meeting his mother's watery gaze, Percy is filled with a flood of memories, ranging from a very strange one-eyed man in a trench coat to performing a literal Herculean task and killing 2 snakes in his preschool nap time. Percy thinks to himself that maybe, just maybe, he should tell his mom about what happened at the Met with Mrs. Dodds. But before he could, she confides in him that she doesn't really know what else to do. Perhaps it's time to send him to that summer camp his dad talked about, which is weird to Percy because why would he recommend a summer camp to a child he's never met. Before the conversation can continue, however, Percy and Sally decide that it's time to just give up for the night and go to sleep. Percy awakens from his dream to a ravaging storm, a hurricane knocking at the door, but that's not the only thing that's knocking. Grover's here, except he's not really Grover. At least not the Grover we remember. Sally demands to hear from Percy what on earth happened during the school year, and Percy, being your average 12-year-old, tells something about, I don't know, old ladies with socks, and hey, Mrs. Dodds tried to kill me when I was in the Met. Sally freaks out, knowing it is time. It is now time to take her son to the one safe place that his father knew about, this mysterious summer camp. She yells at Percy and Grover to run towards the car, and, well, Grover's running, just not like any other boy his age, which you can't really blame him for, because what Grover's human feet should be are instead a pair of cloven hooves.
Speeding through Long Island Sound, Percy asks Grover and his mom what is going on and how they know each other. While that last part is easy to answer, they don't really know each other. They hadn't met officially until today, but she was aware that he was keeping Percy safe. Percy asks where they're going, and Sally says that she's taking them to the camp his father wanted to go to, Camp Half-Blood. Mrs. Dodds was real, by the way. And the whole three ladies thing, yeah, those were the fates. And they cut the thread when you're about to die. Well, we have more important things to worry about, like the giant shape that chases and then crashes into Gabe's Camaro. Whatever it was tossed the car off the road like it was nothing. When they crawl out of the wreckage, Grover barely able to move, Percy dazed, and Sally bruised but alert. That's when Percy sees it. It's the Minotaur. Like the Minotaur, from the labyrinth and everything. Sally shouts at Percy to run to the top of the hill, past that big tree. It's where he'll be safe. His mom gets grabbed by the Minotaur and doesn't feel so good, Mr. Stark. Percy staggers to his feet after giving the bull beatdown and drags Grover past the tree, collapsing from exhaustion. The last thing Percy hears are a girl's voice claiming that he must be the one, and another, more familiar voice telling her to be quiet.
Percy finds himself drilling in and out of consciousness, usually under the observance of someone in this strange place he's never been to before. It ranges from a man with dozens of eyes to a girl with blonde curly hair that's feeding him what feels like liquid popcorn. Eventually he finally wakes up, propped up in a chair, observing a hill, where he has what looks like a glass of ice-cold apple juice next to him. Grover's there too, sporting a orange Camp Half-Blood shirt, and everything looks normal. It was all a bad dream. Nothing bad happened. Sorry, Percy, the Minotaur was real. Your mom's dead. Tragic, terrible, I know. He does not want to even entertain the idea of living with Gabe, preferring to go unhoused instead. Grover is sort of having a panic attack because this was his one job and he technically failed. As Percy tries to comfort him, that straw from that apple juice I was talking about, it gets put in his mouth, and to his surprise, it's not apple juice, it tastes like his mom's chocolate chip cookies, which is a bit weird. Grover is then tasked with bringing him to the big house up on the hill. Chiron and Mr. D want to meet him. Yeah, that Chiron, the one who seemingly trained every mythological hero. Percy knows him better as Mr. Bruner, who was on a house call to try and recruit another camper. We also get introduced to that blonde girl, Annabeth Chase, who's been a camper there far longer than most. And then finally we get to also know who this Mr. D guy is. It's Dionysus, the Greek god of wine. Wait, are you sure it's him? Yeah, it's him. Let's settle in for some lore dump while we play Pinochle. What the f is Pinochle? Well, according to Mr. D, it's amongst the greatest games ever created, like gladiatorial combat, or Pac-Man. Percy, and honestly anyone in this situation, is super confused and has no idea what's going on. Not even the famous Camp Half-Blood orientation tape would be capable of filling him in. We never see this tape, by the way. So Chiron does his best. You see, the gods are real, like the Greek gods. Like the ones you learned about but weren't paying attention to. No, not capital G God, that's something Rick won't touch with a 10-foot pole in this storyline. All those myths about heroes and monsters and gods are real, and when a god and a parent love each other very, very much, well, we use the word love loosely for the majority, they make demigods, or half-bloods if you prefer. Percy really can't believe it. I mean, you truly expect me to believe that that's Dionysus? He's here because a while back he took a fancy to a nymph, the book's words, not mine, and Zeus punished him to be the director at Camp Half-Blood for 100 years. Chiron busts in with the winning Pinochle move, again, how do you play Pinochle? And Mr. D takes that as an excuse to talk about Grover and his less than optimal keeper performance. Chiron takes Percy through the camp, talking about how the gods of Mount Olympus have always been moving with the flame of civilization. West. They spend some time throughout Europe, and then they finally settle in America, which is sort of the book's reason as to why we have Western civilization. Now I, a simple meme page, can't unpack that. Oh, hey look, Chiron's a centaur. Along the way, we pass the big house and see something in the window on the top floor. Hey, Chiron, what is that? They almost reach the cabin that Percy's gonna be staying at before Percy asks Chiron a valid question. If the gods on Olympus are real, does that mean the underworld is too? And the answer to that is yes. Now, if you're out of luck and don't know who your godly parent is, you sleep in cabin 11, Hermes' cabin, which, I mean, listen, doesn't make sense. Yeah, he's the god of travelers, but if you have somewhere to sleep long term, you're kind of no longer traveling. It really makes more sense for unclaimed demigods to go into the Zeus cabin, since Zeus is the god of hospitality, but I digress. Either way, cabin 11 is almost filled to the brim with a bunch of kids, most of them unclaimed. The cabin leader is a boy named Luke Castellan. Luke is described as 19, tall, muscular, with sandy short hair. Normal looking dude, except for that scar under his eye. How long will it take for Percy to get claimed so he can move out of cabin 11? Hey Annabeth, let's go play volleyball. Smooth moves, Jackson. You're really embarrassing for someone who slew the Minotaur, which begs the question, hey, if that was the Minotaur, how is that possible? Didn't Theseus kill him in the labyrinth a bajillion years ago? Well, strap in, because this is some wild shit. When mortals die, their souls go to the underworld and go through the whole judgment thing, blah, 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 blah. When monsters die, they turn to dust and then come back after a certain amount of time has passed. Percy complains about the living conditions of cabin 11 and asks why can't he live in one of the empty cabins, to which the answer is it's not about the space, it's about his godly parent. And as far as Percy's concerned, his dad definitely died at sea, but with the trademark ADHD and dyslexia, as well as being able to consume ambrosia and nectar without exploding, Percy's definitely a demigod. Time to haze the new boy. Meet Clarice, daughter of Ares, and her job is to make sure all new campers feel so loved and welcomed by giving them a swirly in the camp toilets. You can tell this was written in the early 2000s. Unfortunately for Clarice, Percy doesn't want to get a swirly, and so kind of maybe is responsible for the fact that the toilets explode and drench everyone, except him. I wonder who his parent is. Clarice retreats because, you know, toilet water. Annabeth, on the other hand, thinks that she should recruit Percy for her team for Capture the Flag. Percy finally comes to terms with the fact that his dad is a god. Who's Athena's godly parent? Well, it's Athena, goddess of battle and wisdom strategy. Hopefully Percy's dad will send a sign soon, you know, if he isn't too busy for a second. After all, the gods have so many kids and so little time to care about them. Camp is also comprised of year-rounders and seasonal campers. If a demigod was the child of, say, Demeter, they'd be fine out in the real world for a few months out of the year. Everyone else, out of luck. Annabeth has been here since she was 7, with 5 beads on a leather necklace to prove it. Why did she come here so young? None of your business. No one leaves camp unless given special permission, and you only get that permission if you're given a quest, which hasn't happened in a good while. Which is a shame because Annabeth knows something has to be off. Ever since her last trip to Olympus, which every New Yorker knows resides on top of the Empire State Building, the weather got weird, like the gods were fighting. Percy coming to camp was Annabeth's most recent hope that maybe he'd be the one to take her on a quest. Percy has nothing he can really say, so he and Annabeth part ways. Briefly, at the Hermes cabin, Percy and Luke have a conversation about parentage and how Annabeth thinks every new kid who waltzes into camp is the one she's been hoping for. A horn, more specifically a conch horn, how did Percy know, blows in the distance to alert everyone that it's dinner time. All the cabins gather together and Chiron stands at the pavilion leading the camp in a toast to the gods. Everyone loads up their plates and then, one by one, offer the best part of the meal as a sacrifice to the gods. Percy has no idea who to offer to, but he asks that whoever it may be, they give him a sign. Dinner concludes, the campers go back to their cabins, and that concludes Percy's first day at Camp Half-Blood. Over the course of the next few days, Percy fell into a routine. Ancient Greek with Annabeth in the morning, and then a rotation of different activities in the afternoon. Turns out Percy sucks at pretty much everything except canoeing, which doesn't seem to match the vibe of someone who defeated the Minotaur. Despite knowing that everyone at camp is observing him trying to figure out who his godly parent is, Percy finds himself at peace in camp. His first sword lesson started off pretty great with basic stabbing and slashing. The only problem is that no matter what sword he held, it never felt quite right. Luke, realizing that Percy is struggling, paired the two of them off. Good luck, Percy. Luke's the best sword fighter the camp has ever seen in 100 years. And good luck rubs off after a quick splash of water to the face, even resulting in Percy disarming Luke. Last chance to guess who his godly parent is. We meet up with Grover again, and good news, he isn't totally screwed. Mr. D suspended judgment, stating that Grover hadn't quite failed or succeeded with Percy. So with their fates intertwined, if the two were to go on a quest and come back alive, that would be considered a passing grade for Grover. Percy then takes the time to ask about the 4 empty cabins. One of them belongs to Artemis, who swore an oath to maidenhood. Another one belongs to Hera, who is the goddess of marriage, so her having kids with people who aren't her husband, kind of a bad luck. The last 2 belong to Zeus and Poseidon, 2 members of the Big 3 along with their brother Hades. Hades doesn't have a throne on Olympus, so he doesn't have a cabin in camp. Long ago, the children of the Big 3 were incredibly powerful and affecting the course of human events. Around the time of World War II, the Big 3 swore on the river Styx to never again have children. But this is Greek mythology, so Zeus had a kid about 17 years ago. Her name is Thalia. He got off easy since he's the king of the gods, but she suffered a terrible fate. When Hades found out the oath had been broken, he unleashed every underworld creature he could to get her. Thalia, along with a couple of other half-bloods and a satyr, made it to the top of the hill when she decided to make her last stand to protect them. To honor her, Zeus turned her into a tree, and her spirit protects the camp. Percy then asks Grover if heroes have gone to the underworld and brought anyone back. And if you've seen Hades Town, you know that no one really has. One came very close. Hey, Percy isn't thinking about capture the flag time. Name of the game, capture the flag. Rules are to capture the flag. Do you really need me to explain them to you? Team 1 is Athena, Apollo, and Hermes. Team 2 is Ares' cabin, and everyone else. One piece of advice, avoid Clarisse' spear. Percy's job is border patrol, standing by the creek and keeping the enemy team away from the flag. Simple enough. Percy does feel something dark and evil in the woods, but he's surely nothing. After all, he has some Ares kids to fight. Calling it a fight would be generous because the Ares kids are there to beat him up, foregoing capturing the flag. They push him into the creek and suddenly Percy's on cloud 9, taking on all 3 of them like it's nothing, even breaking Clarisse's spear. Just then, Luke comes running across the boundary line, holding the enemy flag high up in the air. Percy was a distraction the entire time so they could win. All smart thinking courtesy of one Annabeth Chase. Amongst the celebrations, a hellhound jumps out of the forest. Oh, so that was the dark vibes. And slashes Percy up before getting arrowed to death. Annabeth, having noticed that Percy has more stamina and water, coaxes him into it. And to the surprise of everyone at camp, his wounds start to heal. To top it off, overhead, a trident materializes. The whole camp, even the Ares kids, kneel in respect. Poseidon, Earthshaker, Stormbringer, Father of Horses, hail Percy Jackson, son of the sea god. The next morning, Chiron moves Percy to cabin 3. He has all the space he wants, he sits at a table alone, and he can pick his own activities. He's miserable. Just when it was starting to feel like he belonged, all the other campers now look at him with fear and don't really want to interact with him. Only Luke and Annabeth keep in contact, with Luke pushing him further and further during sword training, preparing Percy for the worst possibilities, and Annabeth keeping up with her Greek lessons, although she does leave every lesson muttering about quests and Poseidon. Someone at camp even put a newspaper article in Percy's bed. The article in question talking about how Sally and Percy went missing and the Chimera was found in a ditch. Gabe claimed that Percy was always a troubled kid, and finally, a helpline if anyone has information about Percy. That night, Percy has a terrible dream, where 2 muscular men are fighting, one telling the other to give it back. The dream then transitions to a dark and evil voice, beckoning Percy to come on down by opening a giant chasm in the floor. Percy wakes up, sure that he's still falling. Grover gets him and brings him to the big house. Mr. D and Chiron offer him a quest. Zeus and Poseidon are fighting over the disappearance of Zeus's Master Bolt. Zeus claims that it was stolen by Percy, and now that Poseidon claimed it, that's more proof than he needs. To say this war would be terrible is really undermining. Destruction, carnage, millions dead. Western civilization turned into a battleground so big it'll make the Trojan War look like a water balloon fight. To prevent war, well, what better peace offering than to have the son of the accused return the lightning bolt? Before he can officially take this quest, however, he needs to go up to the attic and consult the oracle. Upstairs, amongst the treasures of quests past, sits a mummy. Percy walks up to it and asks what is his destiny. Green smoke escapes the mummy and forms into the shape of Gabe and his poker buddies to deliver a prophecy to Percy. You shall go west and face the god who has turned. You shall find what was stolen and see it safely returned. You shall be betrayed by one who calls you friend, and you shall fail to save what matters most in the end. Happy feelings of the future in hand, Percy returns downstairs to relay the prophecy. Well, most of it, since he doesn't like the last 2 lines, so who's the god in the west? Well, who's always been given the short end of the stick every time? whose kingdom would grow by millions, who hates his brothers for forcing him into that oath that they broke. Hades, Lord of the Underworld. So, checklist. Percy has to go west into the underworld and face the Lord of the Dead. Find the most powerful weapon in the universe, and return it back to Zeus all within a 10-day window before the summer solstice. But he's not going to do it alone. He's joined by Annabeth, who has wanted to go on a quest ever since she's been at camp, and Grover, who needs the quest to go well to get his searcher's license. And they will travel on foot, because, you know, Zeus will take Percy out if he ever tries to go on a plane. It's off to the underworld we go. Percy packs everything he owns, which isn't a lot. Annabeth brings her Yankees cap, a gift from her mother that allows her to turn invisible. Grover brings his reed pipes and fake feet, so he can blend in with other people. With $100 and 20 golden drachmas from the camp store, the trio head off to the city, but not before a couple more gifts. Luke gives Percy a pair of winged shoes, which served him well when he went on his quest. Percy thanks him, but says he can't risk any form of air travel. When Luke leaves, he gives him to Grover. Chiron, in turn, gives Percy a pen. Uncapping it reveals a shimmering bronze sword, the first blade to feel balanced in his hand, and a kluzmos, or riptide. It's a gift from Poseidon. It's celestial bronze, so it can only ever work on monsters, not mortals. Bonus point is that it's enchanted, so if Percy ever loses the pen, it will magically return to his pocket. Percy gets concerned with the idea of a mortal seeing him use the sword, but Chiron tells him to just read the Iliad, which talks a lot about the mist, the veil between the mortal and godly realm, making it harder for mortals to see.
While unloading their stuff, Percy can't help but to think that his mom's apartment is so close, and on a normal day, she'd be getting home by now. Grover, natural empath he is, tunes into Percy's emotions. He states that Sally married Gabe for Percy's protection. His rancid odor kept Percy's godly scent hidden for several years. Boarding the bus might be a bad idea, since Grover definitely smells something, and it's not enchiladas. They sit down only to not see just Mrs. Dodds, but two other women who look just like her boarding the bus. The bus departs, and the three women loudly announce they're going to the restroom in the back, where our trio sit. Using Annabeth's invisibility cap, he sneaks past them, and in an attempt to save his friends, Percy grabs the wheel, and I mean, have you ever played Crazy Taxi? Percy pulls the emergency brake once they're in Jersey, and all the mortals pile out of the car. Together, Annabeth, Grover, and Percy fight the Furies before the hair on the back of Percy's head perks up. In a panic, they rush out of the bus just in time for a lightning strike to destroy it and all their belongings. They plunge into the nearby woods for cover. It's really nice that the Greek gods are real because when things go wrong, you have someone to blame, like your bus exploding. Annabeth, Grover, and Percy walk along the New Jersey riverbank while recounting how unlucky they are having to meet all three kindly ones at once. All their clothes, money, and food were in that bus. The three bicker a bit about how it all went south so fast before Annabeth finally thanks Percy for saving them. Aside from Percy dying meaning quest over, go home, it would also be really bad if he died. This is Annabeth's only chance to see the real world. After traveling another mile or so, Percy walks into a tree, and then upon getting up, smells food, like actual, proper food. Not the cheese and grapes and bread and lean prepared meats over back at Camp Half-Blood, but actual, proper, greasy food. Ya boy wants a double bacon cheeseburger. Eventually they stumble on a two-way road, one side containing a broken down gas station, a poster for a 90s movie, and a brightly lit business with neon lighting signs. It wasn't a fast food restaurant, but it was one of those curio places where it sells things like lawn gnomes. We encounter every dyslexic's worst nightmare, a glowing red neon sign written in cursive. Annabeth and Grover can't really read it, but Grover translates it, and it says Auntie M's Garden Emporium. Snack bar? Snack bar. Just not the damn snack. Grover is freaked out going in, especially passing a statue of a satyr that looks a lot like his Uncle Ferdinand. Annabeth and Percy are starving, but Grover, the aluminum can-eating vegetarian he is, insists that they should not enter the establishment because he smells monsters. The trio are then greeted by what Percy assumes to be a Middle Eastern woman because she is wearing a black gown that covers everything but her hand. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. She rightfully asks why are three children out so late at night, and they come up with the best lie in the world, which is, "Hi, we're orphans, and we have been separated from our circus caravan, so can you give us some food, please?" The burger smells so good that Percy can almost ignore Grover's panic, or the fact that these statues that are littering the garden seem to be following them with their eyes. They sit down at a picnic table, and Auntie M compliments Annabeth's gray eyes. Wait a minute, how does she know her name? as she excuses herself to start cooking for these children free of charge. Cheeseburger, vanilla shakes, double XL french fries are brought in before the trio can even begin to settle down. Grover in his impeccable hearing notice a hissing noise which Auntie Em just dismisses, saying it's probably the oil in the fryer. Percy, trying to be a good guest, asks her about the business that she runs. She makes custom statues of gnomes, animals, and people, but since the highway went up, she hasn't received much business recently. Percy's spider sense tingle, forcing him to turn around and come face to face with a statue of a little girl. It's impeccable marbling, it looks almost lifelike, but her face, she looks terrified? Auntie Em continues her story by stating that she had two sisters who used to help her with the business, but they have long since passed. You see, long ago, she had a boyfriend. Nope, not touching it. And there was a bad woman. Nope, who was determined to break them apart by causing an accident for all three sisters. While this saddens Percy, Annabeth quickly perkins up because this is a story she's very familiar with. The vibes are off, and as they try to leave, Auntie Em stops them, requesting a photo so that she can make statues in their image. Percy feels like something's off, but she was so hospitable to them, how could he say no? I mean, it's just a photo. What's the harm in just a photo? They are directed to the park bench right next to that satyr from before, and wait a minute, where's Auntie Em's camera? Wait a minute, that is Uncle Ferdinand! Annabeth quickly leaps into action, putting on her invisibility cap and forcing Percy down to the ground. Percy's at Auntie Em's feet, and something's enticing him to look up at her face. No, Percy, don't do that. That's bad. And it's a good thing he stops, because right where her head should be sounds like a lot of tiny snakes rasping. Auntie Em. Auntie Em. Medusa. Percy tries to think about how she died in the myth while Medusa's yelling, stating how Athena is the one who did this to her, and that's why she must destroy Annabeth. She taunts him, asking him if he really wants to help gods. Does he really know what's going to happen on this quest? Does he have an even inkling of an idea of what's going to happen once he goes to the underworld? Grover suddenly tells Percy to duck as he swoops in behind him, going full Red Baron style and hitting Medusa smack on the head with a wooden plank. Annabeth reappears next to him and says, "You have to cut off her head. New rule, you can't look at her directly, you have to look at her reflection in a glass ball." She lets him approach, not attacking but taunting Percy to spare her. Percy does consider this briefly before Medusa attacks, causing his reflexes to kick in, and well, Annabeth quickly grabs Medusa's veil, covering the head with it, stating that it's a spoil of war, it won't disintegrate, much like Percy's Minotaur horn. Percy asks Annabeth if we have Athena to thank for this monster. She counters with, well, her boyfriend was Poseidon, and they were in Athena's temple when they weren't supposed to be. So really, if you think about it, it's Poseidon's fault. Percy grabs the head. He looks in the back office until he finds an address book, where he finds out that DOA Recording Studios is in West Hollywood, California. In the cash register, he finds $20, a couple of golden drachmas, and some slips for Hermes Overnight Express. Percy puts the address for Mount Olympus, puts the head in the box, and puts some golden drachmas in the pouch on the box, proving his impertinence. Without waiting for Grover or Annabeth to express their opinion, he walks out of the Emporium. 100 yards from the main road, they set up camp for the night. No campfire. After having an encounter with Medusa and the three kindly ones, you kinda don't want to push your odds. They decide to sleep in shifts, Annabeth going to sleep first immediately. Percy tries to convince Grover to go to sleep too, but he is distraught with how humans are treating nature and the wild, stating that they pollute so much you can't even see the stars. At the rate things are going, he's worried he'll never find Pan. Pan, the god of the wild, not Pam, the cooking spray, in case you're hard of hearing like Percy is. Grover recounts the myth, how a sailor off the coast of an island heard wails of anguish, stating that the great god Pan is dead. While humans believed it, satyrs never lost hope. Ever since then, they searched the earth, hoping that if they find him, they can wake him up and he'll make things as they should be. To a satyr, getting a searcher's license and looking for Pan is one of, if not the greatest honor. It's been Grover's dream, just like his father and his uncle, to go out searching for Pan, and to be the first satyr to succeed and come back alive in over 2,000 years. They believe because it keeps them from despair when they think about all the things that humans have done. Percy turns the conversation to ask, how are they going to go to the underworld and take on a god? Grover admits that he doesn't know, but it's kind of funny because when they were back at Medusa's, he and Annabeth realized something strange about this quest. The kindly ones could have been more aggressive, but back on the bus, they were shouting about an it. They were looking for an item, not a person, it seems. They have a quiet moment reflecting on the fact that while some things on this quest don't make sense, they still need to proceed with the status quo and head west to fight Hades. Percy confides in Grover that he doesn't care about the lightning bolt.
He just wants to go to the underworld to try and save his mom. Grover knows, but he counters with the fact that Percy might just be doing this to try and get Poseidon's attention. I mean, after all, what other reason do you have to send Medusa's head to Olympus? Before Percy can really protest, Grover plays some music on his reed pipes, and Percy drifts off to sleep. Before this happens, Percy is awoken by Annabeth throwing off-brand Doritos at him for breakfast. They've been joined by a friend in the night, as Grover is talking to a pink poodle named Gladiola, much to Percy's surprise. Grover is able to communicate with him and is able to relay the new plan. Gladiola hates his owners, but he's willing to go back so that the trio can collect the reward money. There's an Amtrak station about half a mile away, and according to Gladiola, the westbound train leaves at noon. Our trio goes to the Underground Museum, which indeed does have covered wagons and other junk from the 1800s, as Percy put it. It's not all bad for Percy. Annabeth is telling him facts about the Gateway Arch, and Grover's supplying him with jelly beans, but let's just double check to make sure we're safe. Unfortunately to Grover, the underground always smells like monsters, but something is still throwing Percy Jackson for a loop, or an arch, if you will. He asks them about Hades, I mean his friend way underground, and how he has a hat just like Annabeth's. Actually, the Helm of Darkness of the stories are true, allow the user to blend into the shadows so seamlessly that they cannot be seen or heard, and will inflict fear in you that will stop your heart. A lot stronger than a Yankees cap, if you ask me. Annabeth knows about this because she saw him at the winter solstice, the darkest and only day of the year that he is allowed to visit Olympus. So if this helm is so good at hiding Hades, who's to say he's not hiding somewhere and spying on them? A wonderful thought to sit on as they board the elevator with a big fat lady and her chihuahua. The 2005 of the book is showing very strongly. At the top of the arch, which does indeed look like a tin can with carpeting, Percy isn't feeling so great about being enclosed 600 feet up in the air. But at least Annabeth is having the time of her life. If not for the fact the observation deck closes in a few minutes, she would have stayed up there for hours. To avoid mildly inconveniencing everyone who's trying to head down in the elevators, Percy volunteers to stay behind with a park ranger, the big fat lady and her chihuahua, and a family of 3. Percy smiles at the lady, she smiles back with her forked tongue. Honestly, it's just really nice to see that people can enjoy themselves in an awkward situation. And I'm sorry, did you say forked tongue? The chihuahua is getting antsy, and the lady decides that it's time for him to get some exercise. That's because it's not a chihuahua, it's a chimera. Silly mistake to make, we all know chihuahuas are worse. And if that's her son, that would make her Echidna, the mother of all monsters. Despite facing down Medusa, Mrs. Dodds, and the Minotaur, Percy is stricken with fear at the sight of this new foe, but still finds within himself to ask what she means by Echidna. Is she talking about the anteater-like creature? To which Echidna replies by expressing her distaste and hatred in the continent of Australia. The Chimera proves to be a formidable opponent, capable of destroying monuments with fire and also resisting Percy's sword. In addition, he manages to get a little nibble onto his cuff, resulting in Percy Jackson getting poisoned. Backed into a corner, Percy feels like this is the end. Riptide isn't here, the poison is slowly killing him, and the mortals are in danger. Echidna taunts him. If he's the son of the sea god, surely he should trust the water. Percy is literally at the end of his rope, but even if that's the case, why should he depend on the gods? This isn't the sea, it's the Mississippi River, which is totally under the arch, guys. Let Rick have this one, trust me. Echidna continues her taunt. He has no faith, no trust. The gods are fateless. Better he die now. Percy backs up, remembering the warm glow of his father. Surely he was there to visit Percy in the cradle. The Chimera launches one more fire breath at Percy. He prays. With no other choices, he jumps out of the arch into the Mississippi River.
Ah yes, the infamous jump into the Mississippi, Rick not knowing that the river was not at all underneath the arch, but in fact several miles away. Something he'll never quite live down. Percy wakes up to find out that he survived, his wounds are healed, and that he can breathe underwater. He thanks his dad for the bare minimum, aka keeping him alive, and then he's met by a water spirit that looks a lot like his mom. She's a messenger, here to tell him that he should go to the beach in Santa Monica, and that he shouldn't trust the gifts. Percy, bewildered as to what that even means, resurfaces and reunites with Annabeth and Grover, who were super worried about him. Luck isn't on Percy's side, as all the news coverage is now blaming him for the explosion at the arch, so now's the time to get out of St. Louis. They manage to board their train without getting spotted and head off towards their next location. The trio arrive in Denver, Colorado on the afternoon of June 14th. Annabeth suggests trying to contact Chiron, which confuses Percy because he was under the impression they couldn't use cell phones. This does remain true, but who needs cell phones when you got the next best thing, the iris message? Dropping by a self-service car wash, Annabeth shows the fundamentals of the iris message. Step 1, rainbow, in this case made by using the spray gun. Step 2, throwing a golden drachma into the rainbow and saying, "Oh goddess, accept our offering." If you did both steps correctly, Iris will connect your call to whoever you're calling. I guess it's kind of like the monkey paw because Annabeth says, "Camp Half-Blood," and she gets Luke instead of Chiron. Luke answers the call because Chiron is busy tending to the cabins. He has to break up fights because there's an all-out civil war. Cabins are choosing between supporting Zeus or Poseidon. The same person who let the Hellhound in is also probably responsible for letting the Zeus versus Poseidon news slip. Percy catches Luke up on everything they've done since leaving camp. It feels wonderful to talk to Luke, almost making Percy feel like he's back at camp, until the beeper goes off, bringing Percy back to reality that the spray will end relatively soon. Luke laments that he's not there in the quest to help, and reassures Percy that it has to be Hades who took the bolt. After all, the only way you're going to sneak into the throne room and steal it would be if you were invisible. Wait, no, that can mean Annabeth, and that's not what Luke means. Before the conversation ends, Luke asks Percy if the shoes have helped him, and Percy lies, saying that they've come in handy. As the Irish message starts to dissolve, Luke attempts to pass on one more message, that Grover will do fine this time, and that no one will end up a pine tree if he just... Annabeth and Grover, who this whole time were scaring the owner of a Lincoln Continental away from the car wash, join back with Percy and ask him what Luke said. Percy lies and said that Luke didn't say much, and quickly changes the subject, focusing on something that matters more, how hungry he is. They find themselves in a diver, starving while the other inhabitants around them are eating burgers and fries. A waitress presses them on how they're going to pay for dinner, but before they can even answer, a motorcycle pulls up to the curb, painted with flames, fitted with shotgun holsters on either side, and leather seats made of human skin. The man riding it would send pro wrestlers crying home to mama if the fashion sense of a red muscle shirt, black jeans, and black leather duster are anything to go by. Time seems to halt as he arrives, resuming once he enters. Waitress again presses the kids on how they will pay for their meals, and he interrupts her, insisting that it's on him. The man's sheer presence just activates rage in Percy in a way that feels familiar, like when he interacts with his stepfather, but also when he interacts with Clarice. This is Ares, the god of war. He's here to ask them to do a favor for him. He was on a date with his girlfriend and it got interrupted, resulting in him leaving his shield in an abandoned water park in town. Percy asks why he doesn't go get it, and Ares retorts that he just doesn't feel like it. Besides, a god is giving him the opportunity to prove himself. Percy tries to decline, they're already on a quest after all, but Ares tells the trio that if he and the other gods Zeus sent out to look for the bolt couldn't find it, they most likely won't either. Ares wants to give them the benefit of the doubt. He and Poseidon go way back, going so far as to even be the one to frame Hades in the first place. Ares loves war. Framing someone to start one is the oldest trick in the book. In a way, they have him to thank for their quest to begin with. So simply put, they get his shield, he'll arrange a ride west, even hinting that he knows more about what happened to Percy's mom. The trio realize that they have no other options and agree to meet Ares back at the diner once they recover the shield.
Right behind me is Eltic Gardens, I don't know how to pronounce it. It is the closest we're gonna get to a Waterland Park that I can attend here in Denver, Colorado. Standing outside of abandoned water park, Percy learns that Aphrodite is cheating Hephaestus with Ares, which is pretty awkward. Let's break into a water park. They scale the fence while Grover flies and stumbles at the gift shop, which has fresh clothes for the trio to change into. They stock up on all the Waterland Park goodies that a half-blood could ever want, and then they begin their search for the Tunnel of Love, which, as you will remember, is the ride that Ares and Aphrodite were on. No, I won't talk about it more than that. Please don't ask me. They find the ride, an empty pool, which is every skater boy's dream. Above the rim were a dozen or so Cupid statues. The sign above reading, "Thrill Ride of Love. This is not your parents' Tunnel of Love." Seated in the bottom of the pool was a boat. In the left seat was Ares' shield. Percy asks if he smells any monsters, referring to how Grover failed to smell monsters in the arch. This hurts Grover's feelings, and Percy apologizes before making a game plan. He and Annabeth will go into the ride, much to Annabeth's dismay. I mean, what will people say? And Grover will be their eyes in the sky. Annabeth and Percy approach the boat, noticing that Aphrodite also left her scarf there. Annabeth immediately takes it from Percy, saving him from the love magic that it's surely imbued with. Percy then reaches for the shield, but uh-oh.
It's a trap!
Yes, thank you, General. The Cupid statues start shooting wires above them, forming a net to capture them. Speaking of the statues, they all seem to develop cameras for eyes as a booming voice declares that they will start streaming live to Olympus in less than a minute. Just before they manage to escape the ride, spiders pop up. Always has to be spiders, which freaks Annabeth out super hard. Grover can't free them from the net because it's wrapping itself around him, Annabeth is freaking out, and Percy has to come up with a plan on how to save them from the water park. He uses the water in the ride to start flooding the empty pool. He and Annabeth hop into the boat and ride the current so that they find themselves about to crash into a bunch of other boats. On Annabeth's mark, they jump out and get caught by Grover, preventing them from becoming half god, half human, all pancakes. They recover and Percy turns towards the Cupid cameras, declaring the show's over. Hating the fact that he's been tricked, he and the others head back to the diner to talk to a certain god of war.
Ares, by the way, totally knew it was a trick and mocks them about their appearance on Olympus TV. Now, while being a jerk, he's a god of his word, and in return for his shield, he provides transport west, aka sneak into the zoo transport truck. I mean, it is a free ride west, so what else can he ask for? Bonus points, he throws in a backpack with 20 bucks, golden drachmas, and double stuffed Oreos. The waitress from earlier drags the fry cook out to take a photo of Percy and his friends. Great, more news coverage in his future. Before they hop in the truck, Percy presses Aries for what he knows about his mom. Aries reveals that she isn't dead, she's just being kept somewhere. Aries' last words to him before he leaves is some advice. The next time you're in a fight, watch your back, Percy Jackson. So fun fact, a ride west, according to Aries, is just a super illegal animal transport truck. The only things of note to really happen on this ride is that Percy and Annabeth have a heart-to-heart about her dad, and Percy has a dream where the pit voice is talking to someone about how the exchange went well. They arrive in Las Vegas where they free the animals into the streets with a complimentary satyr blessing, and if you thought I was going to set foot in Vegas, you are out of your damn mind. They wander around until they get to the Lowe's Hotel and Casino. You know the deal. Enticing games and rides, loud attractions, good food, etc, etc, except it's a time dilation trap. You spend what you think are hours in here, but in reality, it's days out there. Our trio figured it out and managed to escape, with complimentary credit cards, of course. So, you want to take a cab to Santa Monica from Las Vegas. Do you have the money to do so? You have a casino credit card? Sure, some work, just swipe it and see. On the road, the trio have plenty of time to talk. The Lotus Hotel fried everyone's brain a little. So Percy struggles to remember what the invisible servant had said in his dreams. The Silent One and the Rich One, while common nicknames for Hades, doesn't ring any bells in his mind. The only thing that's bothering Percy is that the main voice didn't seem to be coming from the throne room. It seemed to be coming from... No, it has to be Hades that took the boat. It has to be.
The cab arrives at Santa Monica. Percy and the gang get out, Percy heading straight for the shore. A lovely shark guides him to the depths, where, again, he hears the voice of someone who sounds a lot like his mother. Once again, it's like at the Mississippi River, the Nereid visits Percy. She's also a part of Poseidon's court. Speaking of Poseidon, the big man at sea, he couldn't come, unfortunately. He's on the brink of war. It's not very possible for him to come. Also, gods are not supposed to show favoritism, so he can only help indirectly, which is how he does it. He gives a Nereid 3 pearls to give to Percy. Percy doesn't particularly understand how these work, but the Nereid gives him helpful advice, which is anything that belongs to the sea will return to it. The pearls are his ticket out of the underworld. Just smash them in your feet and bada boom, you're out.
Anyways, who wants to go shopping for waterbeds? A quick bus trip into West Hollywood later, our trio find themselves hiding around trying not to get caught. Stopping in front of a convenience store, Percy sees that Gabe is still up to his nonsense on TV, spouting off moral lies about how Percy essentially ruined his life. New York native Percy Jackson feels unsafe walking the streets of Hollywood, and his fear isn't unfounded as he, Grover, and Annabeth are surrounded by a bunch of fancy white kids. Rich Californians, a New Yorker's weakness. Running into Krusty's waterbed palace, we lose the wannabe cool kids, but come face to face with the salesman of the year trying to sell them a waterbed. He follows Goldilocks rules. If you want to fit in the bed, you can't be too tall or too short, just right. And if you're not, he'll stretch you out or cut you down to size. Annabeth and Grover almost succumb to the no money down offers before Percy convinces Krusty, actually Procrustes, that a good sales pitch must feature a demonstration. Grover and Annabeth recover from almost making a terrible financial decision. Seriously, places that offer no money down loans are monsters in and of themselves, just in time to realize that DOA Records is only a block away. DOA Records, no loitering, no soliciting, no living. Truly your average recording studio. Let's speed through the underworld. Percy and company go down, go through the gates, have a friendly game of catch with Cerberus, and then find themselves in front of that pit Percy keeps dreaming about. It tries to suck them in, but thankfully Grover doesn't have real people feet, so the pit gets a nice helping of flying shoes instead. They manage to get an audience with Hades, who gets compared to certain terrible leaders, again not touching that with a 10-foot pole, where he reveals that he didn't steal anything, and then in fact his helm of darkness is missing. Oh, also check your bag. Oh my gosh, it's the bolt? Remember those pearls you were given earlier? You have 3 pearls, but you have 4 people to save. Yourself, your mom, and your 2 friends. And unfortunately, the math isn't mathing. Thankfully, you made the right decision and used the pearls on yourself, Grover, and Annabeth. So back to the surface we go. Bye, Uncle Hades. I promise to get your little hat.
So thanks to helpful Coast Guard, our trio gets back to shore, and now they realize they've been duped. By who? Ares, who just happens to be here. Now, it's very bad for Percy because Percy was supposed to die in the underworld, the Master Bolt was supposed to be left with Hades, Zeus would blame Hades, Poseidon would blame Hades, Hades would blame Zeus and Poseidon, everyone would fight each other, World War III would happen. Very mass, terrible war. Was it your idea? Yes, it was my idea. I don't listen to Dreams from the Pit. No one said anything about dreams. We're gonna fight to the death now. Well, that happened. Congratulations, Percy. You beat Ares. I hope he's a good sport about it and doesn't curse you or anything.
Congrats. Don't look at his true form!
Well, that's poor sport of him. So glad Annabeth was here to tell him not to look at God's true form, or else he would have gone the way of the Covenant. Suddenly, the flapping of wings can be heard. Mrs. Dodds is there, as well as her sisters. Hey, so was that Shadow the Furies? No, it was something else. Something deeper. Something from that pit, I think. Oh well, doesn't matter now. Hey, Furies, can you please return the Helm of Darkness to your boss so we can call off World War III? Now the trio need to get back to New York as fast as possible, which means flying by plane, which, as we all know, was something that Percy was warned never to do unless he wants Zeus to blast him out of the sky. Well, the time calls for emergency, so Percy takes advantage of the generosity of several Californians. He lies to them and tells them that his dad will gladly compensate them a free electronic from his shop if they help provide money to get Percy and the gang home.
Together, our trio head back to New York. Flying on a plane is probably Percy's worst experience by far. Every bit of turbulence reminds him that he's in Zeus's domain, and at any moment Zeus could just send the plane crashing down. After landing safely in New York, our trio divide into groups. Annabeth and Grover heading back to camp, and Percy heading to Olympus. Arriving at the Empire State Building, he tells the security guard that he's here to see Zeus, and unless the guard wants the bolt to accidentally make it out of the bag, Percy should be led up to the 600th floor. Percy basks in the greatness that is Olympus, colorful and clean the way Athens must have looked 2,500 years ago. Percy walks up the steps and into the throne room, which honestly the word room doesn't even begin to cover it. The place makes Grand Central look like a broom closet. Out of the 12 thrones in the room, 2 were occupied, the ones in the end. Zeus wore a pinstripe blue suit, sitting on his simple throne of pure platinum. The guy next to him sat in leather sandals, Bermuda shorts, and a Tommy Bahama shirt. Percy kneels in front of his father, which kind of makes Zeus mad because, hey, remember when we had that oath to never have kids again? I'll listen to your kid and then we'll see if I blow him up. Percy recounts the entire quest before laying the bolt down at Zeus's feet, and before dropping an even bigger bombshell. Ares wasn't acting alone. The voice in the pit was influencing him, and Percy believes that that pit was an entrance into Tartarus. Quickly, Zeus and Poseidon have a discussion in ancient Greek, with Percy being only able to catch one word. Father. Okay, thanks for giving me my bolt. Don't speak to me, and if I see you when I get back, I will kill you. Percy and Poseidon have a quick conversation, how the entity in the pit is clearly Kronos, king of the Titans, but also, because if Kronos was coming back, that'd be bad news bears, so let's just not talk about it. Instead, Percy has to leave. Hades kept his promise, and Sally is alive back in their apartment. Poseidon tells Percy that a package will be awaiting him when he gets there, and that a hero's path never ends well. Sorry you were born, son. But don't get it twisted. Percy, you are a true son of the sea god. 15 minutes later, Percy finds himself embraced by his mother back in their apartment, or as it's been known for the past few weeks, Gabeland. Gabe is so mad that he keeps getting calls about free equipment and essentially says Percy has to leave. Percy and Sally have a conversation about Gabe and how he's been terrible to them. Percy even learning that he's been hitting her. That package that Poseidon mentioned earlier? A familiar box of Percy's handwriting. He knows what he can do now. He offers to get rid of Gabe for his mom, but she steps up and says that she can't just count on him to fix her problems. She needs to do it herself. Percy leaves the apartment. The last thing he hears is Sally offering Gabe her surprise meatloaf.
Gabe went missing. It's a real shame, you know. Sally did everything she could. She filed a missing persons report. Very sad. On an unrelated note, Sally did sell a sculpture called The Poker Player, and it made her so much money that she was able to go back to school, ooh la la, NYU, and set aside a deposit for a new apartment, in case Percy ever wants to leave camp. Speaking of, since they are the first campers to return alive from a quest, other than Luke, they are celebrated and treated like heroes. The Council of Cloven Elders even decided that Grover's performance on this quest was enough for him to get his searcher's license. We fast forward to July 4th, where Annabeth and Percy are peacefully chilling out on a picnic blanket, watching the fireworks. Grover approaches them because it's time. He's headed on his quest. He's gonna go look for Pan. He bids them farewell, and as he does, Percy, knowing that no satyr has managed to complete this task in over 2,000 years, is so confident that Grover will be the first. Before we know it, it's the last day of summer. Percy up until this point has figured that the prophecy had come true at this point, right? I mean, face a god who has turned in the west, Ares. See what was stolen and see him safely return. We got the Master Bolt delivered back to Zeus, check. You shall fail to say what matters most in the end. Well, Percy did have to choose to leave Sally behind in the underworld so he could complete his quest. Well, that last line though, that last tricky line, you shall be betrayed by one who calls you friend. I have to make sense of it. What's that, Luke? You want to go to the middle of the woods away from everyone and share a six-pack of Coke? Sign me up. Hey, why do you have a new sword that can kill monsters and mortals? Hey, why do you sound like you're leaving camp? Hey, why did you summon a giant scorpion to attack me? Oh, Luke's the lightning thief. Angered by the gods, who seemingly only care about their kids when they need something, Luke has turned over and joined forces with Kronos. He stole the bolt and tried to destroy Olympus via civil war, and he would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you meddling kids and your satyr. Goodbye, Percy. Try not to die from scorpion venom when I leave. Percy wakes up in bed to Annabeth feeding him ambrosia. They really need to stop meeting like this. He recounts of Luke's betrayal, which Annabeth at first can't believe, but then, no, it makes sense. He hasn't been the same since he came back from his quest. When we reunite next summer at camp, we're gonna go looking for him. Quest or no quest. Annabeth leaves, giving her family another chance and staying with them for the summer. Percy realizes he knows what he has to do. Percy has to go home. With the help of Argus, Percy heads back to Cabin 3, where, in a silent prayer, a promise really, he tells his father Poseidon that he will come back next summer, and they will get Luke.
This book has held up for the past 20 years because it has something for all of us. Action and adventure, quiet reflections, and most of all, it has love. The love between father and son, the love between author and reader, and the love between people. Season 2 of the show is just around the corner, with the Season 3 in the works as well, and that wouldn't be the case if not for the fans. The fans, if you've been reading since day one, or since yesterday, will always be the reason why Percy Jackson continues. I fully expect years from now, long after the last Percy Jackson book is written, for fans to reminisce about these books fondly, to show them to their kids, grandkids, and to keep the name of Percy Jackson alive.